Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Shaka from Shaka Gaming. We've got another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video for you today. Specifically, I have a question for you. You mod Grievous for offense, right? Right? The real answer, guys, is wrong. So today we're going to be checking out characters, 10 specifically characters that you might be modding incorrectly in Slugga. Kind of goes against what your typical thought process would be for modding. So specifically, we're going to talk about Grievous first here, guys. Let's get over there and check him out, shall we? First and foremost, with Grievous, folks, he's an attacker. So a lot of times with attackers, the first thought is, oh, well, we want offense, right? We want crit damage, we want crit chance, all of that kind of stuff. Some of that might be true, but offense is absolutely not true in this instance, folks. The crit damage, sorry about Fritz back there making weird sounds. The crit damage is not necessarily a bad thing to have. You can see I do have crit damage on my triangle, but you definitely do not want offense. Now, don't get me wrong, if there's some offense on here, it's not the end of the world. But what you want to prioritize, guys, is health above anything else. With Grievous, the way that his kit works, and you can see I've got a good bit of health primaries on pretty much everything else that is capable of health primaries. With his kit, his offense, or his damage, I guess is what I should say here, his damage is based off of his health. That's the way his whole kit works. So if you're someone new to the game here and you are just starting this process, guys, this journey in Slugga, and you unlock Grievous, be careful. Do not put offense on this guy as your main priority. You do absolutely want health is your #1 most important thing. Crit damage, like I said, isn't bad. Speed isn't bad. You do want him to crit. So while crit chance might be something you focus on at first prior to relic levels, once he gets to relic levels, you're really not going to need a ton of additional crit chance. You can see with mine, he does have some extra. I do have a little bit extra on there, 18%, to get him up to 93. Ideally, you want him close to 100%. You want him critting as much as possible. But without a doubt, first and foremost, the #1 thing that you want on him, guys, is health. Now, moving on to our second one, kind of the same idea. So with Wampa, Wampa is a solo freak, guys. He goes into battles in GACs, does his thing soloing. And again, he's an attacker, so first thought might be, oh, I want to put a lot of offense on him. That's actually not the case. With him, he's going to stack and build that offense over time. So yes, again, offense, kind of like Grievous, it doesn't hurt to have some offense on him. It's not like you don't want offense on him, but there are other things that are far more important. In this case, the two big things are health and tenacity. You can see with my mods, the way I have it laid out, I chose mostly tenacity sets, but the health is a big thing when I am actually looking for the stats here, guys. Like I said, offense isn't necessarily bad. I do have some offense here in addition to other things, but my main priority is health primaries with tenacity built into that kit. Speed, not massively important. Again, doesn't hurt to have it, but not a terrible thing. If you can get some potency on them, that doesn't hurt either, because you want to be able to land some of these dazes in particular. But without a doubt, the biggest factor with him is his health, because that increases his survivability. And for those of you that don't know, his protection up is based off of his health. So the higher your health is, the more you're getting out of that protection up when he does his first special. The other factor, like I said, tenacity, guys. This is a little bit older, so if you're currently like a Kyber 1, Kyber 2 level player, you're not necessarily going to see this a lot. But the big reason you want tenacity is against opponents like Iden Versio, who goes first and could potentially stun you if she has a high enough amount of potency. In general, outside of her, you still want to have enough tenacity that you're going to resist any kind of debuffs like stuns or dazes, things like that. That's the big, most important thing here, I would say, is getting enough tenacity to resist those things. That allows him to counter, that allows him to eventually build up his offense and his damage and take out your opponents. The third thing in here that is important, and unfortunately is not really something that we can get through mods, but we can get it through datacrons, and that is your health steal, guys. If you are able to get any kind of health steal from a Datacron, specifically, guys, with Wampa, that is also a very, very good stat to look for when you're looking at your Datacron stats. But like I said, generally speaking, guys, health, tenacity are your top two without a doubt. And then if you're going into the Datacron territory, guys, you want to go for that health steal as well. Speed, offense, less important. Again, if you can get some of that stuff, though, never a bad thing. Moving on to more of our kind of health concept here, Maul. So this is a bit of a tricky one because where you use Maul dictates how you mod him. So for instance, you pretty much always are going to want offense on this guy. The more offense you have on him, the better. You can see I run an offense set with him specifically. A lot of people that have him under a Lord Vader do want to prioritize protection. So that's something that kind of goes counter to what you might think. So in his kit, not only does he deal damage based off his offense, but he also deals damage based off of his health as well. So generally speaking, you want as much health as possible on him. The exception, as I said, if he's under a Lord Vader team. So with a Lord Vader team, he converts all that protection into health. So under Lord Vader, you actually want to prioritize protection for Maul. If you don't have Lord Vader, like myself, then you do want to prioritize your health. You can see that I put a little bit more of an emphasis on my offense than I necessarily did health. I think it's more important to have that consistent offense through him. But I definitely want to get health as much as I can. You can see if I do have a health primary in this instance, I really prioritize my offense in addition to that. The other thing that doesn't hurt, so if you're under a Lord Vader, your speed is not as important because Frenzy is going to get you there eventually. But if you are running a Mandalorian team in particular, your speed does not hurt. That's the one thing with my modding, unfortunately, with Maul here, guys. He does not have the best speed in the world. I'd love to have a higher speed here and less of these flat defenses, but I just haven't gotten there yet with the mods. I got to take this up to gold before I recalibrate and stuff. But generally speaking, you do want offense, you want health, you want speed if you can get it. But the offense and health is far and away the most important thing on his kit. And like I said, if you're putting him under a Lord Vader, that health switches to protection. Protection becomes your primary focus then at that point, guys, because as I said, that converts to health. You get all those stats rolling under him, guys, and he is going to absolutely annihilate people. Just do some insane amounts of damage. Moving on to our next character that we've got on our list here, guys, General Skywalker. So again, there's a common theme here, guys. They're all attackers. All of these characters that we have talked about so far are attackers, including General Skywalker. But General Skywalker's kit doesn't function as much like an attacker as much as it does a tank. Don't get me wrong, offense is never a bad thing, similar to Maul, similar to Wampa. You do want offense on him if possible. But the difference here is you want to prioritize both his defense and his protection. So you can see I went with an offense set because, again, I want him to have that offense, and a defense set. I do not have a health set on him. The health is a little bit more debatable depending on where you're using General Skywalker. If you're facing against, for instance, a Darth Revan team, if you're a little bit more earlier in the game and you're using him to counter a Darth Revan team with Malak specifically, you don't want health because that enables Malak to take him down faster. If you're not using him in that instance, the health isn't as big of an issue. If you've got health on him, it's not going to kill you. But it all depends on how you're modding him. Mine specifically is set up to counter Darth Revan teams and Malak in particular, so I don't have a ton of health because of that. In terms of the stats, though, the number one most important stat here, guys, is protection. You want to have as much protection on General Skywalker as possible. The more you have, the longer he stays up, the more he punishes your opponents, and the longer your team will stay alive to do more work and do more damage. In terms of speed, initially when he came out, speed was a big thing for him. A lot of people wanted him to go fast so he could get his AoE off and daze people and reduce their cooldowns and all that jazz. Now that that meta has settled a little bit, speed is not as important. It's more about having that protection. It's more about having the defense and the offense and getting that counterattack to work. You can see with me, again, primaries protection is a priority with offense and speed at times and sometimes health. Basically anything that's going to make him thick. If you can get defense on him, I actually would argue that defense is better than health. but it all depends on the mods that you've got. You can see, for the most part, I don't have a lot of defense, unfortunately, on these sets. There we go, there's one. And the other thing, too, guys, to not forget about is tenacity. The more he resists things like daze and stun and everything, the more he's going to be counterattacking your opponents. So if you can get some tenacity on him, it doesn't hurt. There we go. There's a nice thick defense cron there. It's too bad we didn't roll some more protection on that, unfortunately. I would have preferred the protection over the defense. But, you know, you take what you can get, guys. But you can see protection is a massive, massive, massive priority here for General Skywalker, guys. So don't be fooled by his tag and think that because he's an attacker, you want to prioritize offense and or crit damage. You really want to prioritize protection above all else with him. Get some offense there if you can, some health, some defense if you can, and some speed if you can, but protection is the #1 most important thing under him. All right, Commander Luke Skywalker is our next one here, guys. This is one that kind of changes as you progress through the game, similar to Maul. Maul, in some instances, you want health, and others you want protection. With Commander Luke, at times, you want more of the crit damage, potency kind of loadout. At the earlier stages of the game, that's usually what you want. They're going to crit a lot. Rebels are built to crit, so you want a lot of crit damage in his kit. Potency also doesn't hurt because you want to land these debuffs on your opponents. But the reality is, as you start to progress this team, and you get Chewpio in particular unlocked, that's Chewie and 3PO, then the way that you mod him changes very significantly. Under Chewpio, what happens is CLS, again, assuming he's the leader, guys, will share his stats with the rest of the team. That becomes massive. Because of that, the way you mod him changes, and you want to go for lots and lots of offense in particular. You switch from that crit damage layout to an offense layout. You can see I do still have a good bit of speed on him. I didn't go with an offense primary. You still want him to be relatively fast. This is unfortunately not one of the better mods that I have, but it gives you a functional idea of how it works. I've got the protection. Again, the more stats he has, the better, guys. Tenacity, offense. This is a much better example of one here where I've got some decent speed, I've got health, I've got protection, I've got some tenacity, offense, all that stuff. Offense, speed, health, tenacity, offense. You'll notice a theme here too, guys. I said initially you want crit damage and potency. Okay, that's the way that you mod him earlier in the game, in the way that we used to mod him back in the day for different raids and things. Now, with the way this team works, you want to be able to resist debuffs. It's very, very important to the function of the team, to keep it rolling, to keep the counterattacks rolling and everything. So now, the focus becomes less on potency, more on tenacity. Because the other thing is, too, if you try to inflict a debuff on your opponent and they resist it, you gain a ton of turn meter. So now potency is not as essential. It does help because you reduce the turn meter a lot of times if you do have a high enough potency. But a lot of times you actually want to train your own turn meter more than you want to remove their turn meter. So tenacity becomes a bigger focus point as you get further into the game than what potency had been originally. You can see that reflected in my mods here, guys. I've got a ton of offense on these mods. I've got speed, I've got health, I've got protection, and generally speaking, I've got a ton of tenacity on a lot of these mods. It's a really, really important layout. Basically, CLS wants all of the stats that can be shared. Check out Chewpio's kit for that, guys. You can see exactly what is shared in that kit, and that's basically what you want to prioritize in his mod loadout. All right, next up, we have Assaj. This is probably one that people would not think is being a primary target for this, but a lot of people end up modding her incorrectly because of the way her kit's set up and works, guys. So specifically, we're going to look at her Rampage ability. You can see my mods on her are not great. My Night Sister team is not up to snuff, guys. They're just not there. So I don't have the best mods in the world on this character, unlike a lot of the other characters I have. But we're going to look at her unique, because this is kind of where it really comes into play. So anytime an ally is defeated, she gains turn meter. That's not super important in modding. 15% offense, 15% crit chance, and then 5% max health stacking. With any of the Night Sisters, you pretty much are always going to want to prioritize health. That's a given. I think everyone knows that. But where people get confused a little bit on Assaj is they forget about this stacking crit chance. People will prioritize crit damage and crit chance a lot of times on her, and that's not what you want to do. Again, especially at the beginning levels of the game, that tends to be what we focus on, and that's not what we want to do here. that crit chance is going to ramp super fast, and you are just simply not going to need to add any crit chance to her, guys. Crit damage, it doesn't hurt to have some crit damage on her, but that shouldn't be your priority. Again, she's going to crit. She's going to crit, so you're going to benefit from having crit damage, don't get me wrong. So, for instance, my primary here is a crit damage primary. I put that as a more important thing over offense. But, as a whole, you want more offense on her than you necessarily do. You want crit damage. So you can see again with a lot of my secondaries, I didn't go so far as to put all the primaries on offense. Like I don't have a primary arrow here. I do still have speed on that. But my primary cross here is an offense primary. Speed on her doesn't hurt, but it's not as essential. Because again, she's going to gain turn meter when people are defeated. So speed, not that important on her. That's another thing that people would maybe misunderstand here. You don't need a ton of speed on your Night Sister team, guys. You just need them to be reactive and survivable in that reactivity. So really load her up with tons of offense if possible. Give her that crit damage arrow because that's going to help as she ramps her crit chance. As an example here, you can see her crit chance right now is only at 63% for me, guys. It's very low. But literally after Zombie has died twice, which is a guarantee pretty much to happen in a battle for you, she's already up to 93% crit chance. Like, you just don't need crit chance. So if you're looking through your different mods that you got, guys, don't worry at all about crit chance on her. Go for the offense, get that ramping offense up as high as possible, get the health, get her ramping health up as high as possible, and then throw on a crit damage triangle just for fun to kind of take that to the next level. All right, next up, Jolee. Jolee is probably one of the most misunderstood kits that we have here, guys, in terms of how you mod him. So, in his... Is it this one? I think it's this one. Max health and his ability... No, not that one. This one. Yeah, okay. Don't interrupt me. It says, Jolee has 100% tenacity and is immune to turn meter reduction effects. Start of the battle, he gains bonus crit avoidance equal to half of his tenacity. So, you want a ton of tenacity on him, guys. You do not need any crit avoidance. This is a very common misconception. People will put health on him, which, don't get me wrong, health is good. You do want that. But a lot of times they'll think, like, well, should I put a crit avoid, arrow on here? Will that help at all? No. Don't do it, guys. You want tenacity, tenacity, tenacity. He gains that 100% tenacity. If you are able to get a lot of tenacity in his stats here from his mods, then you're literally going to have over 100% crit avoid because of that. You can see I have a tenacity arrow here. Unfortunately, I don't have any tenacity on this secondary. This was actually a mod I swapped out. I had a better one on here for a little while. You can see here I've got a good bit of tenacity. Unfortunately, I haven't had the rolls to make that work, but it's a work in progress. Actually, let's see what happens. Can we get it? Oh, I'm not mad about that. I'll take a 28 speed mod, guys. I'll take that. You saw it here. Tenacity is not bad, but I'll take 28 speed. I'm not mad about that. But you can see I do have a good bit of speed on him in other places. You do want that tenacity, though, guys. It's super important because that's going to translate to crit avoidance. If I remember correctly, yeah, here's my big one. I actually have so much tenacity on him. We'll go look at his overall stats, guys. He's at 90% tenacity. Remember, when you add in that plus 100%, that's 190% tenacity. He gains half of that in crit avoid. Divide that by 2, what is that, 85% crit avoid? Like, that's crazy amounts of crit avoid that he's got. Especially when you take into the idea that he's already got 7.5% built in. This actually is why I don't have tenacity on all of my mods, because I literally get to a point where he's going to have 100% crit avoidance chance. So it just makes it very, very difficult to defeat your Jolee. The tenacity is absolutely good and essential, but you can see at some point you're going to hit a kind of an inflection point and switch to health because you just have so much tenacity that you're going to have that massive 100% crit avoid, and there's not really much of a point in investing in it further. But like I said, do not do crit avoidance, guys, on Jolee. Prioritize tenacity as well as health, and if you can, speed as well is not a bad thing either. All right, moving on to our next one, kind of the opposite of Jolee. Instead of tenacity, we want the opposite. We want potency. All the potency in the world, guys. Here's why. Recovers 20% of his max health, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't matter. What's more important is down here. It says, He has 35% evasion against Jolee, 50% potency. Oh, goodness gracious, I can't get this to work right. Here we go. Plus 50% potency and gains max health equal to his potency percentage. That is massive, especially with the Sid Cron that is out currently, guys. This is why my Sid is just wrecking teams in GAC, because I have him modded for, as you can see, potency. I do have one health mod just because these were better than potency mods. Let's go in and before we even look at the individual mods, let's look at it, guys. 146% potency. I've got plus 101% potency on this guy. Now, remember, in that kit, guys, you're gaining plus 50% potency and getting your max health equal to that potency. So literally plus 50, I'm at almost 200% potency. So my Sidious is gaining almost 200% max health. That's crazy. That is insane. Again, couple that with the Datacron, it's insane amounts of health. Speed, never a bad thing, again, but I actually don't have a whole lot of speed on him, and I don't need a whole lot of speed on him. Even outside of the Sidcron, guys, I usually put him with my Treya team, and he'll start to stack that offense over time. You want loads of health because of protection up, and he gets all of that through his potency, through the health that you can put on his mods, obviously, and he becomes incredibly hard to kill. He becomes incredibly potent and dangerous. He's going to land debuffs all the time. And he's obviously going to stack that offense up and do some insane amounts of damage over time. By the end of a match, for me, he's critting at over 100,000 damage on a basic. And again, they can't kill him because he's so incredibly thick. And with the Sidcron, his potency is so high, he's constantly landing those dots, which means you annihilate your opponent. Just a common, everyone thinks that because, again, he's an attacker, you want offense and you want speed. Not the case, guys. You actually want loads of potency, health if you can get it there, and then if you can get speed on him, great. If you can't, not a huge issue. Potency, 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 potency. That is your number one priority, guys, on Sidious. He's become so good that way. Next up, kind of the antithesis of speed, as we were talking about with Sidious. You don't really want a ton of speed here. The Mandalorian. So a lot of times you would think, well, he's going to annihilate people with his special, so I just want him to take turns and get going as fast as I can, right? Wrong. A lot of times when you clock this bounty hunter team, guys, you actually want him to be the slowest character on your team because you want everyone else to get their abilities off and then be able to get contract for him. The other factor with him, guys, in his unique is that he's going to gain turn meter every time he crits, and he's going to give your team turn meter based on those crits. So he doesn't really need a ton of speed. He's going to get a lot through turn meter gains. The other factor that you want with him, obviously, is crit chance. The more he crits, the more turn meter he gains, the more his team gains that turn meter as well. So, with him wanting crit chance, that usually means we're also going to want crit damage. And you can see I have him modded for crit damage. I have a lot of crit chance on him. You can see I have him actually at 109%. It's a very, very high crit chance. Pretty much guarantees that he's going to crit every time unless they have crit avoid, something like that. Or crit damage immunity, that kind of thing. But he's going to gain a ton of turn meter because of that. And you do want him actually to be relatively slow. You can see I have him only at 253, which is very slow by comparison. My boss is at like 320 something. So that way, the way that whole team works, I have a video out on YouTube, guys, on how that team works if you want to check it out, by the way. You basically are going last in the team. You have your contract already fulfilled, and you can just go and use your ultimate right off the bat. Really, really good team, that Bounty Hunter team. Absolutely amazing team. But unusual here where you actually don't want speed. You want to prioritize a slow amount of speed and lots of crit chance and some bonus crit damage if you can get it. All right, last but not least, Zam Wesell. So Zam is kind of like CLS in that we want to really prioritize based off of her kit. With CLS, it was based off of Chupio's kit. With her, it's based off of her unique. So her unique basically allows her to share stats in Grand Arena, guys. She gains 60% increases to her offense, max health, max protection, gains 5% speed for each other Bounty Hunter ally, and then Bounty Hunter allies gain 20% of Zam's current offense, max health, max protection, and speed until she is defeated. So, basically, you want to prioritize these stats: offense, health, protection, and speed. Speed being the number one thing. kind of the counter to the Mandalorian here, guys, the OG Mando, where he doesn't need speed. Zam, you want speed. You can see I have a speed set on her plus a health set. You want to prioritize those particular things that we mentioned in her unique. You can see I've got not my best speed mods on her, but good enough to get her up and running pretty fast, which makes Bosk then run pretty fast. The turn meter, or turn order, I should say, also on this team is very important, guys. Again, check out that video on specifics on that. But more than anything else, you really want to bring up those stats that we mentioned: protection, health, offense, and speed. You can see I do have some decent potency on her as well. That's mostly just so she can land her thermals. Landing those thermals never hurts, but you can see I'm getting that potency through secondaries. It's not a priority. I don't have a potency or a potency. Yeah, potency. A potency cross on here, guys. That isn't really where we need to focus that heavily. Just focus primarily on picking that stuff up, potency through the secondaries. But obviously your number one priority, as I said, is offense, protection, health, and number one, speed all day long, as much as you can get. So there is our 10 characters, guys, that you might be modding incorrectly. They kind of go against the grain of what you might usually think of for that tag that they have. Usually it's an attacker tag that is not actually your traditional offense and or crit damage that you would typically think of putting on those characters. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Hopefully, more importantly, you learned something from today's video, and that can help you guys out with the information that I gave to you. If you enjoyed today's video, guys, I would appreciate if you guys like, more importantly, subscribe, guys, because I am super close to hitting full monetization on the channel. I'd really appreciate if you guys subscribe, so that helps me and it helps you be able to get more content when we put it out, guys. Last but not least, if you like today's video, make sure you check out the next video.